Hey folks, in today's video I want to talk to you about histograms and clarify 3 misconceptions that are so common out there. I really don't think a lot of people are understanding what the histogram is really telling them. Now before we get into that, please jump on over to mattgranger.com. If you sign up to my mailing list, I'll send you a free copy to my guide to improving your portraiture, and you can also check out where I'm heading in the world, all the different meetups, workshops and tours that I have going on. Now, there is actually a lot of great information out there about histograms. If you haven't seen it, I did a video recently explaining a bunch of different aspects, but I actually left a couple of things out which I think I need to remedy, because looking around and seeing a lot of other videos out there, they also miss this information out, and often they're actually providing misinformation on a couple of points. Now, there's 3 things here. I'll run through them one by one, but in case you don't really understand what the histogram is, I do recommend you watch that video, but as a quick summary on what you're looking at there, your histogram is the most reliable way when you're out shooting to look at to get an idea of what's going on with the exposure in your shot. In a bright sunny day, it can be hard to read to see the exposure in your shot on the rear screen. If your rear screen is up too bright or too dark, it may appear like things have blown out when they haven't. Looking at your histogram will actually tell you in a graphical bar chart if you've hit perfect black or perfect white. And remember, in digital, if you hit perfect black, you can't recover that. It's just going to go to gray. There's no more detail there. If you hit perfect white, same story. So it tells you how much of the different tones are actually in your file. Now, first misconception out there is that there's an ideal type of histogram or types of histogram that you should be shooting for. I hear this so often, and I still read it in magazines. It's absolute nonsense to say that this is a beautiful looking histogram. It's got distribution all the way through. It's got highlights, it's got midtones, it's got shadows. There's lots of detail there that you can edit with. That's what you should be aiming for. That's just nonsense. The histogram just tells you what is in the shot. If you're taking a shot of the scene that you're seeing of me right now, yes, there's darks and there's midtones and there's highlights and there's brights, and you would expect a reasonable distribution throughout the shot. But if you were shooting my beautiful black cat on a black rug lit by candlelight, and it is going to be a low-key shot that is faithful to the actual scene, we're going to expect most of the shot is down in the shadow area, in the left-hand side of the histogram. And if there are some distribution going up through the midtones and the highlights, then we could probably say something's gone wrong because the actual shot didn't have that. Conversely, if we're shooting a polar bear in the sun, in the snow, the only darks we're likely to see are its little nose and paws. The rest of it is going to be highlights, almost whites, if we're trying to reproduce it faithfully. So when you're looking at your histogram, don't be thinking about, do I have a good distribution of tones? You want to be looking at what's in the scene. Should there be shadows, midtones, highlights? What should the distribution be? And is my histogram showing that right? Or have I maybe overexposed or underexposed different parts? Okay, now that leads importantly onto another one. So that first point, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. The second point, I just think there's no information out there about it at all. And that's the fact that, I think most of us are shooting raw, right? When you're shooting an important shoot rather than just snapshots where you may use JPEG, if you're going to actually work with the shot, you're probably shooting raw. We all know that it's got more information there, it's not compressed, all of that kind of thing. So when you're shooting out and about, you're shooting a landscape, you've got your camera set to raw, you're shooting away, whether you've got the little blinkies on to indicate highlights or shadows, or you're just looking at the histogram your camera shows you is based on the JPEG, not on the RAW file. As far as I know, there's no cameras out there that actually show you a RAW file histogram as of January 2017. However, when you bring that into your computer and you actually go to edit it, your editing software shows you the histogram for the RAW file. And that's important because the RAW file has more information. It's, to think of it, it's a bigger chart. It's got more range in there. So do the test for yourself. If you go out with your camera just set to RAW, take a shot. I'll do it out my window here to show you as well. Here I'm looking onto Manhattan, and keep increasing your exposure compensation until it's getting really bright and you see that your highlights have hit the far right. So you should be at perfect white and unrecoverable data in your shot. Then you can do the opposite, keep dropping your exposure until you are hitting the left and pure black in your shot, and you should be, unrecoverable data. But because that's the JPEG histogram, when you bring the files into your computer and check them there, you'll see you're not actually hitting the top. You're not actually hitting the bottom. If you really push it, then yes, of course, you will hit those, but your JPEG shows that you're hitting them earlier than you are. Now, why is that important? Well, if you're trying to really, get meaty shadows and you're worried about going too far, so you're bringing the exposure back up, well, it's just wrong, because on your actual file, your raw file, you have that extra latitude there. So you can take it, you'll need to do a bit of planning and testing to get to know your own gear, but you can find that you've actually got that extra bit of latitude, that when you think, oh, I may have screwed up the shot, so I'll just delete the file. Don't, because you might find that you actually didn't hit perfect black or white, and there's still latitude for you to edit your shots. Do the test, you'll see that it's correct. Now the final one, and I don't think this is nearly as important as the other two, but that's that even if you keep all of your settings the same, but you change your lens, don't expect the same histogram from your shot. So if I get, say, my 70 to 200 f2.8, and then I get my 105, and I put them both to 2.8, and I put them both to 105, and then I keep all of the shutter speed and ISO the same, your histogram's still gonna vary a little bit. If nothing else, if you don't understand T-stops, then check out the video that's in the caption, in the cards above. But different lenses transmit a different amount of light, or they steal a different amount of light, or they lose a different amount of light. So that's one aspect. Then some lenses will vignette more. So parts of the shot that were brighter in one will be darker in the other. Some lenses will handle flare better. So if one lens really flares badly once there's highlights in the shot, you might find that it plays with the highlights that you're actually seeing in your histogram. Again, because the histogram is just telling you what is in the shot. It's not aspirational, it's just an accurate measurement of the exact data that has been recorded. And that's how you need to look at it. It's an extremely useful tool. As I say in the video that I've linked above, you want to make your histogram your best friend, especially if you're shooting creative stuff. So if I were out and I'm trying to do a shot where I have I'm using off-camera flash and I'm going to create a little pool of light, which I've done, so I'll throw a card above for that video. And I want to have most of the scene almost black, but then I want to have a bright spotlight on someone, and I want to make sure that I don't lose the exposure on either. That's where checking your histogram and playing with it and being aspirational about your final result makes sense. But if you're just taking a shot of a scene, you just want to make sure, does the histogram reflect the reality if you're trying to represent it faithfully? I hope that all makes sense. Please do jump on over to mattgranger.com. Loads of free tutorials over there for you to take advantage of. And if you aren't already, subscribe here. I put out 2 or 3 YouTube videos a week of this kind of helpful photography content, as well as travel and all the different things that I'm up to. Thanks guys, leave me your questions and comments. I'll see you soon.